Ellie was happily married. At least she thought so, for a full 7 years. But that 8th anniversary destroyed her beautiful sandcastle. Ellie met Vincent at a New Year's party, where her friend Candy invited her. There was a lot of noise, fun, and laughter. Suddenly, Ellie noticed a man at the bar. He wasn't having fun and wasn't dancing. And Sally went over to him. It seemed unfair and wrong to her that someone was sad alone on an evening like this. "Let's go dancing," she called out to the man. But he looked at her, first surprised and then for some reason angry. "I'm not dancing. Come on, it's not polite to refuse a woman. My name's Sally and you. Vincent, and I thought I made it clear that I am not a dancer." Ellie took a seat next to him. The man looked at her again and tried to get up. The woman was glad he'd changed his mind and jumped up, but she made it so awkwardly that she staggered and leaned lightly on the man's arm. But instead of the support she had hoped for, Ellie suddenly felt them falling together. The noisy, cheerful crowd rushed to pick them up. Red with anger, Ellie stood up and wanted to say something offensive to the man, but suddenly she saw that someone was handing crutches to Vincent. She just hadn't noticed them before. Ellie felt very ashamed. She muttered something of an apology and went to the exit. The young woman sat down on a bench outside and soon saw Vincent neatly walk out of the bar and start to catch a cab. But suddenly he swayed awkwardly and slowly sank to the pavement. Ellie rushed to him and a minute later was dialing ambulance. The man was unconscious. She met the new year in the hospital corridor. The doctors diagnosed Vincent with a secondary fracture. The surgeon took Sally as Vincent's girlfriend and berated her for not taking care of her boyfriend, since his bones had only just begun to unite. Allie, feeling guilty, scolded herself for pestering Vincent with this stupid dance. Suddenly the phone vibrated in her pocket. It was Candy. "Hey dear, where are you? I've been looking for you." "Candy, do you know that guy on crutches?" asked Sally. "Vincent, of course. I've known him since high school. He had an accident not long ago, survived by a miracle. He spends all his time at home now, so I called him and invited him to a party." He agreed. "So where are you? Well, come back here, and Happy New Year to you." Ellie. There was music and shouting on the phone, and Sally turned the phone off. People say that the way you leave one year will determine the way you enter the next. Ellie and Vincent spent almost the whole year in the hospital. Vincent was treated and rehabilitated there, and Sally visited him. He hadn't been angry with her for a long time. He was happy to see her, and then when he was discharged, they continued to date. Ellie took care of Vincent, nursed him like a child, and the recovery process went so quickly that even the doctors were surprised about it. And only Candy shook her head skeptically. "Why do you need this invalid? He will sit on your neck for the rest of his life. What are you going to live on? Fortune and his pension." Allie was indignant. "What are you talking about? How can you say that? He and I love each other and we'll be fine. I'm sure everything will be fine. We've almost made it." Candy shrugged, and soon the friends practically stopped talking. Candy met some guy and seemed to be going to marry him. When crutches were no longer needed, Vincent proposed to Sally, and she agreed with pleasure. Their wedding was beautiful but modest. Candy called and congratulated her friend, and soon they were in touch again. Candy herself never got married because she had quarreled with her fiancé. Sally didn't ask about the reasons. She was too happy that Vincent and Sally's marriage was happy from day one. Vincent was a programmer. Thanks to his knowledge and experience, he earned more and more money every year. They traveled a lot together with Sally, and 3 years later, they had a little son. Until, when she saw that Sally was doing well, became a family friend again. She often came to visit, stayed overnight, and sometimes, as if in a joking manner, asked Vincent, well, what he found in Sally. Vincent was laughing. I couldn't resist. Ellie wanted to marry me so much that she almost broke my legs. And Sally always added, come on, what difference does it make now? The main thing is that we're happy, aren't we, honey? So 7 years passed. Ellie and Vincent were getting ready for their anniversary and had a long time to choose a place to celebrate it. They decided to stop at their favorite karaoke bar. They both sang well and their voices complemented each other perfectly. For the evening, when they celebrated their anniversary, Candy was in good spirits. She laughed a lot, danced, and almost blew up the karaoke bar. So when she suddenly needed to go out into the fresh air, and Vincent offered to help her, Ellie did not object at all and nodded to her husband. Sure, go. She could not leave her guests without attention, but when the microphone line began to approach her and Vincent, everyone expressed a desire to listen to their duet. Suddenly, Ellie noticed that her husband hadn't returned yet, and apologizing, went searching for him. Vincent was nowhere around. It was getting dark. Ellie stood on the steps of the bar, and dialing his number, did not know what to think. The muffled sound of the phone sounded somewhere nearby. At a loss, she stepped into the twilight of the juniper bushes that surrounded the building. Her husband was standing with his back to her. He had Candy pinned against the wall, who, head tilted, was clutching convulsively to him. Her arms wrapped around Vincent were white in the darkness, and her frantic whisper stunned Sally. I miss you so much. I can't. Vincent said something quickly to her. She nodded and continued, her hot whispering again. At some moment, Candy looked up and saw Sally. They seemed to stare at each other for ages. After she came to her senses, Sally turned and walked away. She didn't go back to the bar. She just walked and walked through the night city. Ellie wasn't crying. It was like she was frozen, and only her thoughts were bursting before her like fireworks. It's impossible to convey all the thoughts and feelings that were literally tearing her apart. Her beautiful sandcastle had been crumbling for a long time, and she finally saw it when a pile of sand was left in its place. But before her eyes, one by one, came images from the past. Here's Candy asking Vincent to help her bring her furniture from the store. At can hear, Ellie comes home from work and her husband, Opening the door, smiles strangely and says, "And we have guests. Candy came just before you." And Candy coming out of the bathroom and fixing her hair. Or, for example, that night when Candy once again stayed at their place and watched some silly movie with Vincent late into the night. And again, Ellie saw the look in Candy's eyes. But everything. Anger, triumph, mockery, and victory. Yes, she had won. She had ruined Sally's family. Now, there would never be happy evenings and warm days. Though no joy. Oh, Vincent. Sob suffocated Sally. How could he? What was he missing? What would she do now? How could she live now? Years had passed since that night. Ellie could not forgive her husband. They divorced. He didn't want that. He apologized. He even said it was her fault because the first thing was an accident. He was drunk, and then he was just afraid Candy would tell her everything. He went to see Sally a few more times and then stopped. Finally, he realized that such a chasm that arose between them could not be bridged. Candy recently got lucky. She married someone. Meanwhile, Ensign remained alone. Ellie and her son left for another city, breaking off all previous ties. Life is slowly getting better. She's being courted by a colleague, a very nice man. However, Sally is not yet ready for a serious relationship. She also no longer goes to karaoke bars and hates juniper bushes.